when you get out, the reality is we are driven human beings. We're perfectionists, but we come out without a lot of those skill sets that we need to be successful. We don't really learn business. We don't really learn communication. We really don't learn to be leaders. Then all of a sudden we're thrust into a business where we've got to do all of those things.
So my creative little Christina and the one who says you need to go to the gym, they are like arguing.
I love that.
Well, I don't.
We're all a product of our habits. And so we've all got good habits. We've all got bad habits. The trick, as you know, is to try to minimize the bad habits and really elevate those good habits, because the more of those that we live by, the better we are, the more that we grow, and the better everything we do is.
So one day I asked myself, what if I could turn my mistakes and challenges into stepping stones for others? That's how this podcast was born. I'm Christina Radix, a former dentist and clinic owner, turned coach, speaker, and DJ. I'm here to help dental professionals thrive and not just survive. On this show, we will go from stress to success through real stories, mindset tools, and my 3+5 formula for work-life harmony. This episode is proudly sponsored by Smiler. Smiler connects patients with the best dental clinics for their unique needs. And through Smiler Pro, dentists can find the right patients for them. It's a new era of trust-based, transparent dental care for both sides. Thank you, Smiler, for supporting our mission to help dental professionals live and work with purpose. Learn more at smiler.com. Please subscribe, comment, and share if you believe that the dental world needs more fulfilled, grounded, and inspired people. So let's dive in.
Thank you. It's Friday here, Friday evening.
Yay!
What time do you have?
It is 9 a.m. here, but it's going to be a great day. We're going to have this awesome conversation. I have another conversation in an hour, and then I have a cool webinar this afternoon. So,
wow.
Yeah, good way to end the week.
Yeah, I'm so curious about your story because you're helping the dental community, and I think you have been through a lot to come to that point when you start to share and wanting to reach out. So please tell us who you are and tell us about your story.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. And I've enjoyed following you online. I mean, you have the most interesting career I could ever imagine. I mean, from dentist to DJ to life coach to podcaster. I mean, you're really well-rounded. I love that about you. And, I'm so appreciative that we're having this conversation today. So thanks for having me on.
Me too. Thank you.
So I guess just to tell you a little bit about myself, I got out of dental school in 96, was an associate for a few years, bought that practice, was really successful. We did a lot to kind of grow the business and increase our patient flow. We got more patients to say yes. And within 2 years, I was just about burnt out. I mean, I know you've been there. And it was one of those things where I was seeing so many patients that it was difficult to really establish those great relationships or nurture those relationships that I'd been building for 3 years because I was the guy and I was doing so much. So at that point, had to make a pivot and kind of blew up the whole thing and started over from scratch.
Let me pause you. What were the symptoms? So for the listeners out there, because we speak about burnout, but what were your symptoms?
I was exhausted at the end of every single day. And when I came home, I didn't have patience to have one more conversation. I was not present when I came home. I wanted to have me time, downtime. And that's not the best place to be, in a new marriage and as a new father and as somebody who was so out of balance. My God, Christina, I didn't think I could last another 3 or 4 years as a clinical dentist, let alone have a whole career. So, you and I both know when you get to that point, if you don't make changes, then you're going to be in a really bad place.
What made you make these changes? And what changes did you do?
You know what? I think that the realization that my wife and I were growing further and further apart, and that I wasn't happy at the office. I was less patient. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I felt good about the work I was doing, but I wasn't having that time to really connect like I had previously when I was an associate. So what I decided to do, Christina, because that model wasn't sustainable for me, I decided that I needed to go back to the drawing board and develop a practice where I didn't have to see so many patients, where I could have more time with each patient, build those relationships, and do better dentistry at the end of the day. So I got a little crazy, Christina. I went out and did like 250, 300 hours of continuing education with my team every year. And I mean, we learned a lot, but we spent a lot of money. We were, I think, $100,000 to $200,000 a year for about 4 or 5 years. And, as you can imagine, the overwhelm from all the education and trying to implement all these things, it was different.
Another burnout.
You know what?
It goes in cycles, doesn't it? It comes.
I think some of it comes down to our personalities. If you have a type A personality and you always want to be growing, you always want to be doing, you don't want to be just a dentist or just anything, then I think it's in our nature to have that happen periodically. And I've had 3 or 4 of those moments in my career.
Yeah, I still have them. My husband has said, "Do you realize that you're the first one speaking about burnout?
Yeah,
having burnout."
Yeah.
But when he said that, I was like, I will look that up, and I Googled it, and it said that that's normal. People that, just like you said, it's a personality type. We cannot really stop. We push ourselves. We don't feel when it's time to stop. So I think at least once a month, I feel, not burnout, but I feel that I have pushed myself too far. Yeah. So I feel really, really tired. But now when that comes, I'm like, okay, I will take it easy. So I would just be in the sofa maybe a whole day. Because I didn't work 8 hours the days before. I pushed myself maybe 12 hours plus 12 hours. Well, the third day I can be in my sofa, but I couldn't see that before. And that's the difference.
Right. Absolutely. And I actually just came to one of those realizations again, like 9 days ago. I mean, I'm building some new businesses. I'm trying to create value for as many dentists as possible. 29 years in, I've learned a lot. I've got a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and a lot of great relationships. And so I'm parlaying that all into a couple of different endeavors. But because they're new, I found myself 11 to 17 hours a day because, whenever I had a new idea, I had to just keep chasing it.
Exactly.
And before you know it, it's 3 a.m. and I'm going to get maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And I was doing that month over month over month. And now I made a decision 9 days ago that I got to dial it back again, start getting my sleep. And I know I'll be a lot better communicator. I'll be a lot more efficient. And I think a lot more effective in everything I'm doing.
Yeah, I agree. Because the difficult thing is when you're in this phase where all these ideas come, you cannot let it go, because if you wait, then they disappear. Like you have to grab them.
Absolutely. You're speaking my language. You understand. I mean, I don't know that I've ever talked to anybody who articulated it so well, but it's exactly how I feel. If I don't do it now, it'll be gone.
Yeah. I know. And I think it's like gifts.
Well, good for you. Gosh, it's so interesting for you. It seems like you have a lot of different outlets, since you stopped being a clinical dentist and doing the DJing. I mean, that's got to be a huge stress relief for you.
I think I've always had it, because now, like, I think back sometimes between patients. I just said to the assistant, I closed the door and I said, I'm just going to dance a little bit. And she was like, yeah, whatever. And I put the camera and I made, and I was like 40 years old. It's not that I was 20. It was in me. Something had to come out. This craziness, like, I cannot explain where it comes from, but I've always had it since I was a small child. So I don't think we can fool ourselves. What has to come out has to come out. If not, we develop other things like drinking, or these bad roads.
Habits.
Yeah,
right.
Unhealthy habits.
Well, and I mean, as well as I do that in dentistry, I mean, it's been a problem, at least in the US. I don't know if it's much a problem in Europe or not, but here in the US, since the day I started dental school in 1992, dentists have had the highest drug abuse, divorce, and suicide rates of any other profession. And, on day one of dental school, I couldn't understand that. I thought, my gosh, my dentist, he comes in, he sees me for 3 minutes and he's gone. He's probably sitting with his legs up on his desk, watching TV, who knows? And, when you get out, the reality is we are driven human beings. We're perfectionists, but we come out without a lot of those skill sets that we need to be successful. We don't really learn business. We don't really learn communication. We really don't learn to be leaders. Then all of a sudden we're thrust into a business where we've got to do all of those things. And we've usually got a lot of debt, and there's just so much pressure to perform. And what about all those patients who say, hey, nothing personal, doc, but I really hate dentists. I really don't want to be here. And then you put on your loupes and you're dealing in tenths of millimeters. Like, people don't understand it unless they've been there and done that like we have.
Yeah, I totally agree. So tell us about all your projects, because I love your new newsletters. It's so much.
Thank you.
The one I shared was about setting boundaries. Like, I couldn't set any boundaries. I realized that I had a lot of issues. Yeah, issues. I had issues. I couldn't set boundaries. I wanted to be liked, and it shouldn't be legal to go through 5 years of dental school with that personality type. It shouldn't be. And business, don't talk about it. I couldn't speak about money. What should I charge? I didn't do so much.
Right. It takes time, and I think it takes confidence, and I think that knowledge that it's not just that 20 minutes or 1 hour or however long we spend with a patient. It's the years and years of study and experience to get to that level of expertise, the investment of time, the investment of money to get that education, and then maybe to buy that business or to build that business. Christina, the first day that I walked in the door as a business owner, I had $1 million in debt and I had $10,000 in the bank. And talk about stress. That was a really rude awakening. And the reality was, I better make this happen. And if I don't, things are going to be really, really bad. And, fortunately, I did spend a year really getting ready for that. I spent a year as an associate, really learning the business, learning to communicate better, trying to learn leadership. But as well as I do, so often it's like trial and error. You make a lot of mistakes, you get something right, and then you just try to repeat that while avoiding the mistakes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. But do you still have your practice?
No, so my story, I told you about the overwhelm and going out and getting all that CE. And within a couple of years of doing all of that education, I was asked to be a clinical mentor with the David Hornberg group. And so I did that for several years. I was on a lot of different boards and helping set up big events and provide education to a lot of dentists. So in that process, through thousands of hours as a student and then thousands of hours as a mentor, or educator, I learned, Christina, that my favorite way to learn and teach was in small groups because, it's more personal. And in a group of 10 or 15 people, you can really be more vulnerable and you can share and you have more direct access to the educator. That's when you can have real conversations. That's when the educator kind of lets down their guard a little bit and the education becomes more conversational, almost more of a mastermind format where you can apply what you're learning to your specific situation. And that is something that I loved so much that it had always been in the back of my mind, thinking, gosh, at some point I would love to provide that for other dentists so that they can have these transformative experiences like I did in those small group settings. So, fast forward through multiple practices purchased and started and, grown successfully, and 4 kids, and then 5 years of Ironman triathlon training and just a crazy life. Finally, in 2015, just 10 years ago, I got an offer I couldn't refuse for my practices. And so I went ahead and accepted it, because at 45, I thought if I signed a 5-year contract, then at 50, I can be done with clinical dentistry. I'd kind of done everything that I wanted to do. And I felt like I'd proven myself. Then I could start to do what I was really meant to do, at age 50. And so I've been trying to figure that out now for the past 5 years.
I think we will figure out that the whole life, life is a journey and it changes, and we just have to trust. I think the right road is just following where your passion, where you feel excitement. Okay, there are maybe people that don't need. I know that I'm a person who needs excitement. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying I need it all the time, right. But I need to feel like these butterflies. Yeah. And I did feel it in my clinic. I loved my work. I felt it every day when the patients were happy. I felt it when I did these beautiful smile makeovers. If you scroll down, you can see I was like before and after, and the patients' reactions. Right. But because I couldn't handle business, I couldn't set boundaries. I was this people pleaser. Yeah. Unfortunately, the space in a clinic became a traumatic place. Like, I went there, and by the end of the day, I received a lot, but it was always like a deficit. Like, I had given more than I received, given more than I received, and until it came to a day when that excitement was gone. And that's why I have this strong mission to really spread this world, because once that feeling comes, that doesn't matter the money, doesn't matter who says I'm the best dentist, I don't want this anymore. And that's a difficult place to be, because if I'm not a dentist, if I don't have my clinic, who am I? Right. I had to go on the road and find myself again.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, because, through that whole process, I did kind of reinvent myself, and I reinvented our practice, and I got to the point where I was doing those life-changing procedures. I didn't want to do it until I felt really confident that I could do it well. And once I did, that it kind of changed everything, because all of a sudden you're doing, new smiles or full mouth rehabilitations and things that require a higher level of communication and a higher level of kind of value creation with patients. And boy, I really loved that, Christina. That became something I was so passionate about. And so I really enjoyed that clinical side where, like you said, you're changing lives, and patients are so happy to have gotten that. And it's exhausting. It takes a high level of concentration. And again, when we're dealing in tenths of millimeters, and by the way, we still have to check hygiene patients, and we have a team that we have to lead, and we've got financial things and bills to pay. It's a lot, I think, for any dentist to do. But you have to find a way to, I think, mitigate some of that stress with, what do they call those? Skills, coping mechanisms, whether it's exercise, whether it's music, whether it's dancing, whether it's a great walk in the park. We got to have those things. And I think sometimes dentists kind of miss out on that part, or just so tired at the end of the day that they just want to plop down in front of the TV and not do anything else, right?
Yeah. I heard one day one dentist said, dentists are so boring, but it's not that dentists are boring. I think we lose ourselves because we are, it's funny because Mahatma Gandhi there's a quote that I like: find yourself by losing yourself in the service of others. And that's true, for example, when you do volunteer work, that you find yourself, and that's healing.
Yeah.
But in dentistry, by giving so much to our patients and dealing with all this fear, and they don't want to see you and all that, I think it's a high risk to lose yourself.
It sure is. And in addition to being responsible for your patient's care and, oral health, we're responsible for our teams too, to some degree. When you're a business owner, you've got a lot of people depending on you, for their livelihood. And it's a big responsibility. And I think that if you become a good leader, then you can equip your team to, do a lot of the things that you were doing previously, which then empowers them, makes them feel a sense of ownership. And before you know it, at least in my career, I was finally able to stop micromanaging, feeling like I had to do everything. As soon as I got to that point where I wasn't just delegating, like giving tasks away, but I was delegating and trusting that they would do a great job. But I don't think we would have gotten to that point, if I hadn't, sort of built a good team, given them the tools to be successful, been able to articulate my vision clearly, and then just make sure that we're all properly aligned. And once we get to that point, things got pretty good, for a long time. And those are the kinds of things, Christina, a lot like you, those are the things that I want to share with other dentists. Some of the mistakes I made or challenges that I came up against, I want to help dentists fast track or find a way around that rather than having to do the trial and error thing like I did. And then the things that went really well, I want them to learn from that, because you can condense time and get to success more quickly that way.
Yeah. Tell us about the retreat.
Oh yeah. So back to that, over the past 5 years, I had a corporate job for a year, and I was on the road for 201 nights that year. I gained a lot of weight. It was just such an unhealthy lifestyle that, last summer I finally got some clarity on exactly how to do what I'd always kind of been thinking about, but hadn't been in a position to actually put together. So I put together a team of some of the best educators in dentistry, guys like Steve Rasner, Arun Garg, Jeff Buski, who Elijah Desmond, Deborah King, Gary Takis, Fred Joyle, Trent Smallwood, Val Dangler, Tom Larkin, some really interesting people, and they're all niche experts. They have things that they're really good at. And while I'm pretty well versed in almost all the categories, I'm not necessarily the niche expert. But I know all those people. They're good friends of mine. Some of them have been mentors. Some of them I've mentored in different ways. But those friendships have been really fun to kind of turn into luxury dental retreats, where we are taking dentists to luxury destinations, really cool venues with really great educational content. Because in addition to my passion for teaching, I have grown passionate about luxury travel. My wife, kids, and I have done some really cool stuff over the years. So I thought, why not combine the two? Because a lot of dentists, they don't take enough time away from the office to relax and sort of re-energize, but they also want to do education. So I thought, why not combine great education with an amazing vacation? And so that's kind of how it all came together. And rather than me being the one to be talking to everybody for 3 days, now I'm bringing at least one speaker along. And so the two of us can talk and have these conversations that don't just go from 9 to 5 or 8 to 2. They are 72 hours, or in Dubai in August, 120 hours of access to us. And I think a lot of the value comes from that conversation that happens after the session. We might be out on a yacht. We might be having a Michelin-starred dinner, but we're talking about practice. We're talking about life. We're talking about finding that balance and that elusive, happiness, whatever that looks like for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so helpful to to hear other people's stories. First of all, you realize that you're not alone.
Right.
Because when I went through the burnout, I really felt that I was the only one. I got the feeling. So I started to research.
Yeah.
That was the first time was 2015. And I Googled, like,
Yeah.
is there somebody else? Hello. Am I the only one? You know,
Right,
and then you start to see, well, there are more people. And nowadays, more people are speaking about it.
It's true. It's true. I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of dentists feel like they're on an island. You know, they could have a very successful practice, but they may not have much interaction with any of their colleagues, you know, and they get lonely because let's be honest, not that many people can understand what we go through. Every time I talk about the statistics to anybody who's outside of dentistry, like, what? What are you even talking about? And so when the people you spend your time with don't understand that and can't relate to that, it does feel like you're the only one. And so finding community, finding mentors, finding people who understand, having those conversations, a coach like you know, you can really kind of peel back those layers. And I think I have no doubt that dentists are a lot more comfortable talking with you, and they probably open up and you hear a lot more than you even thought you would because they know you understand.
Yeah. It is. The good thing with coaching is that it's based on asking questions. So it's not based on my story. So you could coach anyone, doesn't matter their profession, but it is special to be a dentist. So it is, there are benefits being there. And I'm so grateful because right now I'm coaching dentists that are in different phases of their career. And I really enjoy it because I remember, like, one dentist, she will open her practice in a year. And I'm really happy for her because I remember how happy I was. And now I feel like I can give her this gift of knowing all the errors I did. I'm not speaking to her in a way like I did like this and now you should do it. But for example, like I didn't have so many protocols I didn't have protocols how the receptionist should answer the phone. But now I know that every little single detail in your clinic should be studied. If you want to receive the patient in a special way, everybody in the team should receive. So even if one is sick, the other person will receive the patient in the same manner. So that won't affect the quality. Right. So all these details, or you have to know your numbers. You cannot just go with your feelings. Know your numbers. Yeah. What does the practice cost? But many dentists, because they didn't teach us that, we're like, we're just following.
It's so true. And you know, if you don't have great systems, then, you know, you're never going to be efficient. You're never going to have team members who become interchangeable. And when you do have turnover, it's kind of a disaster because you're starting over from square one. But if you have efficient systems in place that everybody understands, when someone new comes in, as long as they're the right person, you know, they have the right work ethic and attitude, and you're aligned, you know, from a philosophical standpoint, I mean, they can learn really quickly, and that's great for your business. It's great for patients. It's great for the team. It's great for morale, and we're a lot less likely to hit that burnout stage. And you know, I think that you asked a great question earlier, Christina. Your question about what are the signs and symptoms? Like, how do you know when you're getting to that point? And I think for me, being able to recognize that, you know, before you hit that wall, you know, it is really important, because then you can, again, like you said, dial things back, rein yourself in a little bit, and try to be a little bit more reasonable about the expectations you have of yourself.
Yes, 100%. 100%. So
how many? Anybody who doesn't track their numbers they don't have a business; they have a hobby. You know, because
I was really bad at it. I was really bad at it because I I have never had really the business mind. I became a dentist because I wanted to make a difference, in people's lives, peace, love, and understanding. But then you realize, hey, this is the real world. Doesn't matter what I think and want.
Yeah.
You have to pay the bills, and that is a big stress factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a complex and very expensive business to run and operate. And, if you don't kind of rein that in and sort of figure it out, at least to, some degree, you're going to really struggle. So
I think if I'm going to be really, I think I became a really good dentist, like the last, when I had been in I have heard that before. You have to be a dentist for 10 years until you become a good dentist. You have to go through some challenges and see different scenarios. And then I think when I had been a dentist for 15, 16 years, then I started to become really good in the matter that, for example, I was afraid. The reel I put yesterday when I was dancing, that is the message I want to say. That when I had issues with, I was afraid that the patient would think that I was selling.
Right.
Because, many patients say, I hope you're not going to find anything today.
Yeah.
They're already like, you're going to sell. I don't want to do anything. And so I was really afraid of being received as selling. So I was afraid of saying everything. But the more experience I got, I was thinking, but if I go to the hairdresser, or if I go to beauty salon, I want them to tell, Christina, it would be great if you would do this, this, this. And the older you get, the more things you have to do. But, that is really good service. So I realized that. So then I started to tell the patients everything I saw. And that's good service by doing it in an ethical way, of course, not saying things that they don't need. So, yeah.
There are a couple of things that you just touched on that I think are really important. I think one of them is it's incumbent upon us as oral health professionals to tell them everything that's going on, to treat them like they're a member of our family. Because if we don't tell them, nobody's going to tell them. And I know as a young dentist, it was hard sometimes. It's like, oh gosh, are they going to think that I'm just trying to make my car payments? Or then I have kids. Oh, I'm just like funding my kids' education. It's like, no, like if you were my mom or my sister, this is exactly what I would be telling you. And I don't have a horse in this race. It's your mouth. It's your decision. And you're not going to hurt my feelings if you don't do it. But it would not be good if I didn't tell them what they needed. And then I think the next piece of that is just coming from an abundance mindset. I think that when I first came out of school with all this debt and I was so scared, like, am I going to be able to pay the bills? There's a little bit of a scarcity mindset and that, oh my gosh, if they don't say yes to this crown, what's going to happen? And I think that in our careers, obviously we're there to serve. First and foremost, it's all about the patient. And I think that confidence comes just with repetitions, comes with conversations, comes with people saying yes, and you're just more relaxed. And then people say yes more often because you're coming from abundance and they're not sensing a sale,
Yeah.
We just become better communicators as we grow in confidence. For sure.
And one detail that I noticed is the older you look, the more confident the patient gets. Because I remember the first 10 years, but that's true. The first 10 years, they looked at me in the waiting room and they were like, are you the dentist? You look so young.
I know.
And I didn't, and that, you start from a starting point that now I have to show that I'm confident enough, that I have experience while I'm looking young. And I've heard that a lot. So that is a big issue when you're a young dentist. I've heard that a lot. And then one day I was like, hey, it was a time ago they said that I look young.
I know, right?
I was like,
when did that change?
When did that change?
No,
and then they start to believe like you just look experienced and you get another respect, and that helps as well. You don't have to try to say that you have experience, because they can see it in your wrinkles and in your gray hair.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, when I came out, I was 26-year-old, very baby faced. My hair was a lot darker than it is now, and I probably had, I bet 20 patients said, "Doc, how old are you? Are you old enough to be doing this?" So my senior dentist was like, I think he was 59 when I started, and I was 26, and people were a little bit hesitant. I mean, as they got to know me, they got very comfortable with me as a person. And I think once they're comfortable with you as a person, then they get a lot more comfortable with you as a clinician. It's like, oh, okay, well, he makes me feel good. She makes me feel good. So I trust them, because that, at the end of the day, it really does come down to how you make them feel, and
always.
I mean, that transition from me being defensive, I'm 27 and a half, as a young dentist, to, it doesn't really matter because I'm just here to help you, and I'm going to do a great job, and they sense all of that. And so much of it just comes into, our mindset and how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah. And that comes down to anything you're doing, actually. Like,
Definitely.
People don't remember what you did. People remember how you made them feel.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Christina, when I was, I was probably about 10 years out of school, I took a sedation course, learned how to do oral conscious sedation, because I know like 40%, 50% of Americans don't go to the dentist due to fear. And so there's this huge underserved population. I thought, what a great way to serve them, with sedation. And so we started marketing towards, these patients who have high anxiety, with sedation. And honestly, it was so interesting, Christina. At that point in my career, I was so comfortable just chatting with people and listening to them and making them feel comfortable that if we had 10 patients come in for a sedation consult, by the end of our 15, 20-minute conversation, probably 7 of them decided, you know what? I don't think I need sedation. I think I'm fine. Those other 3 out of 10, they came in, had sedation appointment, and usually after one sedation appointment, they're like, I'm really not scared anymore. And so, when
they felt they had control. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. If you can do that for people, then they're never going to leave you. They're going to love you as a dentist, love you as a human, and be grateful for, everything you were able to provide for them that they were too afraid to do previously.
Yeah. What have you noticed in the dentist? What is the dentist that goes to the retreats, your retreats? What are the biggest challenges they are facing?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it's life balance. Our last retreat in Puerto Vallarta I did with Jeff Buski. He was my speaker, and I know you know of Jeff. He's an amazing guy. He has an amazing story. I met him in Bermuda last summer. He was on stage as one of our keynote speakers, and he was super passionate. He was really vulnerable, share his story, which is so common among dentists in the U.S. in particular. And man, so much of what he said really resonated with me. And so he was the first person I said, hey man, I really want to do this with you. I want to get the message out. I want to make an impact with your story, because we all have, some part of that. And so in Puerto Vallarta, Christina, we had docs who were doing anywhere from $3.5 million a year to $10 million a year. So they're already successful financially, but they had other things, and so one of the cool things with Jeff in both Puerto Vallarta and at our upcoming retreat in Dubai, he is the master of life balance, between body, being, balance, and business, really how your body, mind, and spirit, when they are aligned and in balance, it impacts your relationships in a very positive way. When your body, mind, and spirit are aligned and your relationships are better, well, that all impacts your business. And so his journey from, being in a really dark place 10 years ago to being highly successful today as a clinician, it was a journey. Getting right with his body, his mind, his spirit. with his relationships. And so I think that all of us, I mean, as human beings, I mean, this isn't just dentists, as human beings, sometimes we've got one or two of those things really hitting on all cylinders, but then we might have two or three other things that just we're off. And people like you and I, perhaps, that are drivers, and we're always like trying to learn more, grow more, do more. It's easy to get out of balance. And so getting into alignment is, I think, something everybody needs. And that's something we're incorporating into every retreat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think balance is the most challenging things. Like I love to, when I train, I would love to train in the morning at the same time that I'm most creative in the morning. So my creative little Christina and the one who says you need to go to the gym, they are like arguing.
I love that.
Well, I don't. I don't, because I have to go. And then I'm like, but I just want to write this, because my mornings are the best moments. If I have had a good sleep, I wake up 5 o'clock and I start 2 cups of coffee, and I'm like, I accomplish much more in those 4 hours than I can do a whole day. When is your peak?
You nailed it right there, Christine. I think controlling your morning is the most important thing that any of us can do as human beings if we want to be productive and find that balance. Because let's be honest, after a certain time in the morning, people want us. They want our time. They want our attention. We've got responsibilities. And so one of the things that I did with Jeff last summer, I turned 55 last July 27th. On July 28th, I kind of made a lot of changes. I started getting up at 5 every morning. And what I do now, I have a full routine every morning, like between 5 and 8. It's like gym time, where I'm doing some reading for personal growth. I'm meditating. I'm journaling. And today was the 294th day in a row where I got in a workout, and that is all a matter of developing good habits, and good habits repeated daily become routines that ultimately become who we are. And so now, I mean, it's not optional. Like, I've got to get that done, pretty much no matter what. I checked into my hotel in Dubai at 10 p.m. A few weeks ago. I went to vet all the properties and restaurants and excursions and whatnot to make sure it was all up to par. I got to the hotel at 10 o'clock, and you know what? By 10:15, I was in the gym getting my workout in, or I would have broken my streak. And then by 11, I was sitting down to an amazing dinner, but I got my workout done. When I came home, I was so exhausted. I had jet lag and I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up at about 11:30. I was like, oh man, went straight down to the gym, got my workout in, because that's who I am now. But we're all a product of our habits. And so we've all got good habits. We've all got bad habits. The trick, as you know, is to try to minimize the bad habits and really elevate those good habits, because the more of those that we live by, the better we are, the more that we grow, and the better everything we do is.
I love it. It's so true. So true.
First thing in the morning, it's the only time, like, you got that time to yourself.
Thank you so much for listening to From Stress to Success. If this episode spoke to you, please subscribe, share it with a colleague, or leave a comment, so more dental professionals can build fulfilling lives with harmony and purpose. A big thank you again to our sponsor, Smiler, for making this podcast possible. Until next time, take care and keep rising.